Hello and welcome to the Hustle Hardwood podcast. I'm Jesse. I'm here with Gabe, Liam, and today we have a super special guest, the Warriors play-by-play announcer. He's been with the Warriors for decades. He's a huge god in the basketball organization, and we get to interview him today, Mr. Tim Roye. Tim, thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure, guys. It's great to be with you.
All right, so Gabe is a huge Warriors fan, so I think it's only right if he gets to ask the first
Hmm.
question.
Sure.
Okay. So, with your time with the Warriors, from when I researched it since 1995, so this is going on 30 plus years with the team, what's it like getting to be with the team for so long, getting to see them at their lowest points and then also at their highest?
You tend to appreciate it. First of all, it's a great job, and I love the job. And the thing about being with one team for so long, you get to witness all the changes. I'm on my second ownership group. When we first started, we had maybe 30 team employees, maybe, and now we're a full-fledged corporation. We have the Warriors, we have the Golden State Valkyries, and we have Chase Center, and all three of those elements have to have full staffs. So it's a big deal now, and just to watch the growth of the game. I'll give you a case in point where you know when I first started, there were guys named Volkov and Marshallonis who were from Russia and Lithuania, and when they played, they came to the NBA. That was a big story. Wow, we've got a foreign player. And if we had a Canadian, there might have been one, maybe two in the league when I first started with Sacramento back in '89 in the NBA. But the now it's a global game. And now we're getting a lot of players from Africa, which we never thought of before, with the exception of a handful of guys like Manute Bol. So watching the growth of the game and the growth of the organization has been tremendous. When the things were bad early in my Warrior tenure, people would ask me, "Where's Golden State? Is that Colorado?" They had no idea where we were, and now we're a worldwide brand. In fact, I'll tell you one little thing. When the Warriors moved back to San Francisco, it's where they started. They moved to Oakland, came back. The thought was call them the San Francisco Warriors again. But what they found when they researched it was that Golden State had become such a big brand that it would be foolish to change the name. And I'm glad they did. I think it's great because it gives all parts of the Bay Area. Bay Area is a very large place with three big cities in San Francisco, San Jose, and Oakland. And so keeping it Golden State, I think, keeps all those people engaged.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Liam, what's your first question?
So, you've called one of the best seasons of all time the 73-9 Warriors. What made that team so good that it's better than every other team?
Well, that what made that team and I think the group that they had, during that time was they were unselfish, and B, they just had a whole bunch of players who were very high basketball IQ players. Guys like Andre Iguodala, Draymond, Steph, Clay, guys that really knew, how to play the game and what made the game fun and simple. And let's face it, they were talented. Two of the best shooters of all time. And I think Steph Curry is the best shooter of all time, simply because he can shoot it off the dribble and also off the catch with anybody. And so that the fact that they were talented, but also the fact that they played for each other and that they were an unselfish group. When if Steph and Draymond were on the bench and say Sean Livingston made a great play, they were the first ones up cheering. And so the combination of talent, IQ, and unselfishness, good coaching, obviously with Steve Kerr and his staff, that made that team a lot of fun. The fact that I don't think gets appreciated enough is that the Warriors went to 5 straight NBA Finals.
Hmm.
Can any one of you, either anybody here on this panel, can you tell me the last time that happened?
I mean,
Uh,
LeBron went to like 10 straight finals, but that's not a team.
No, that's not a team. And he played in the East. So at that time, the East was down. So that wouldn't have happened if he
like
was in the West,
like
in
the
my opinion.
'90s? Did the '90s have that?
The 1960s,
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
Boston?
Red Auerbach in Boston. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
the last time it happened. So think about that. He went through the '70s, the '80s, the '90s, the 2000s until it happened again. And that to me is one of their most unbelievable accomplishments is going to five straight NBA finals.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah. So going into your little storytelling. So what was your first ever play-by-play call, and how do you remember? And do you remember how like you felt and like how like the first game was, and like how you controlled those nerves?
Uh let's see. I'm trying to figure out what the I I always wanted to do this. I've known I've wanted to do this since I was about 8 years old. So, but there are nerves when you first start out, and you're a little wary. My first real professional play-by-play job happened when I was 19. It was in college in upstate New York. Got a job as the backup minor league hockey announcer. I went in with a tape of me doing the club hockey team, the college I was attending. I broadcast their games over the campus radio station. And as I like to joke, I went into the real radio station, and that was everything they were looking for. I was young, I was naive, and I could be had cheap. So I got that job, and that was a little nervous. I did a preseason game. It was a funny story. I did a preseason game, and I struggled with the numbers on the side of the jerseys. It had never occurred to me before that I might have some eye problems, so I had to go get glasses before the regular season started so that I could see the numbers. And once that happened, I wear glasses now all the time for just about every game I do. So yeah, there are some nerves, and I think what you need to tell yourself when you're getting nervous about it is if you're prepared and you're ready to go, then everything else will fall into place. And the other thing I would tell myself too, if I started feeling nervous about something, I would say, well, nobody's listening anyway. So or nobody's watching anyway. So then I would chuckle to myself, and that would settle me down and get me going.
Well, thank you. All right, Gabe. Any more Warriors questions from their number one fan?
Um, I guess I would like to ask, as we're talking right now, Giannis is in current trade talks.
Mhm.
And of course, right now, the favorites to land him are teams like the Celtics or the Heat. But I would like to ask, because I know the Warriors have been in some conversation about it, how do you, from the business side of things and from the fan perspective, handle this kind of news that your team could land a big name?
Well, the business side of me, first of all, I got to tell you a little clarification. I'm officially an employee of the Golden State Warriors. I'm not an independent contractor. So, as an employee of the Golden State Warriors, I'm not allowed to speculate on players from other
Oh,
teams coming to the Warriors. But let's face facts. We're in a world now where there's nothing but speculation. And so, what I usually do is try to look around and try to separate the rumors from the facts. The facts are that maybe some great players are being shopped right now, and I think if Giannis is one, then there's going to be a few others as well. So I kind of just separate the facts and wait till I get the confirmation from the team that something has happened, and then from the fan part of it, you just tell fans that the one thing I can tell you that the Warriors will do under their two primary owners, Joe Lacob and Peter Guber, is that they're not going to settle. They're going to turn over every rock until they make sure they give it their best shot. I think the one thing they want to do is compete. They want to compete for a championship every year, and to do that, they're going to have to take some big swings now and then. And I'd rather have an owner be that way. I've worked for other owners in other situations where they kind of hid behind the salary cap and didn't do some things for because they weren't sure they really wanted to compete for a title and spend that kind of money. This current ownership group we have is unbelievable. They really want to win. They're in this to win things.
Thank you.
all right, Liam.
So you've been calling Warriors games since 1995. How has the play-by-play style changed in those last 30 years?
Uh, technically, it doesn't change all that much. What has changed is you have to be aware of. Well, what's changed is more the prep and the awareness. When I first started, if a guy took a three, sometimes you'd be going, "Hey, I don't think that was a good shot." Steve Kerr has this great line he uses that when he was playing, all his coaches would yell at him if he took a shot, came down the court, took a shot right away, because they said, "Oh, you can always get that shot." And he goes, "All of those coaches were wrong. The analytics show that your best chance to score is early in the shot clock. before the defense gets dug in and set. And so what's changed is you have to know more about analytics. You have to know more about the value of the 3-point shot. As Don Nelson told me one time, I said, "How come you like taking on so many threes?" He goes, "Well, last I checked, threes are worth more than twos." And so, you have all of that. And then the other thing is the pace of the game has changed. In the 90s, it was walk it up, pound the ball down the box, and bang away at it. And now it's get the ball up the floor because everybody has the same analytics. They know that if they get the ball up the floor quickly, their chances of scoring increase. So the pace of the game has gone. Now, from a technical side, what's changed in the play-by-play is that when I first started, we were courtside just about everywhere. And so that gave you a real feel for how the game was being played. But somebody figured out that if they chopped off the scorer's table, made those into seats, they could make a lot of money off those seats. And so radio has been moved upstairs to a lot of buildings. And that changes because there's some nights where if you're in a place that's not filled and the game's not great, you have to work harder on staying engaged because unlike the floor, you don't have that immediacy that gets you into the adrenaline of everything. So you have to stay a little bit more engaged.
All right, so this is a question regarding the Warriors, probably the best Warrior of all time, Steph Curry. How is it like? So you have seen Steph Curry's entire career, correct? I think you have.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, you've seen Steph Curry's entire career. What is it like not only seeing him progress, but just watching him play every game as one of like the most satisfying players to watch in the history of the NBA?
Who are the most satisfying ones?
No, like how does it feel to like watch Steph Curry
Out to
as a
watch yourself. First of all, he's a really nice man, and I have this luxury of working with Steve Kerr and Steph Curry, and they make my job very easy. Steph will always, greet me. He doesn't ignore me. He'll come by and either greets me by my name or he greets me by my Twitter handle. And so, he's great. But what he's done is he has he's one of a three or four players maybe in the history of the game that have truly changed the way we look at the game. Everybody shoots 3-point shots now. Everybody shoots from just crossing half court now. Nobody did that before he did that. And he has changed the way we look and feel about players. In the 90s, if he was drafted in the 90s, they'd say, he's just not big enough. He's not strong enough. And he wasn't really coming into the league. So what did he do? He transformed his whole body. And when he got his body right, that's when his ankle injuries started to go down. They didn't see the ankle rolls as much as we saw at the beginning of his career. So he's changed the game. And for that, I think he's one of the, top 5, top 10 players of all time simply because of that. And it's so much fun because he gives me so many indescribable moments every night that I have to can you believe he just did that? The fact that he's a great guy, it just makes it, like ice cream on top. It's an amazing thing, and I'm truly blessed to be in this situation.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Gabe, what's your next question?
I would like to ask, outside of Steph Curry, who would you feel has been one of your favorite players from the Warriors to watch? And it doesn't need to be from recency, even if it's someone from far back.
Wow, there's a lot of them. I'll say one guy I really loved to watch play was Jason Richardson. He's the father. He's the father of Jace Richardson, who plays for Orlando now. And there are two things about Jason. One, as Steph gives you these tremendous thrills with his shooting and ball handling, Jay Rich did it with sheer athleticism. Nobody could get to the rim, and I mean physically get to the rim like he did. And the other thing about Jason, and back then we were still on the floor. Well, we were just in the process of being moved off the floor. But when he would come back to huddles, he would be in a full lather. And that told me that he's out there playing hard every night and always gave you something. If he wasn't scoring, he gave you rebounding and defense. And again, another really nice guy. And the other part about him that's very similar to Steph is that he didn't rest on that athleticism. He knew as he got older, he had to transform his game. What did he do? He went out and became a 3-point shooter. He was a good 3-point shooter at the end of his career. And he worked at that because he was not a jump shooter when he first got to the Warriors. So Jay Rich is probably one of my favorite guys to watch play, and then Andre Iguodala was another one simply because he just thought the game through and he had the best hands I've ever seen. Just amazing. He was able to strip the ball on not just any player, but just on great players.
Yeah, Liam, what's your second or third question? Third question.
So speaking of Jason Richardson, um, you called that from the We Believe era that game against the Mavericks. How did that series like make you feel from being an 8 seed to defeating a 1 seed?
Well, it's interesting. We had beaten the Mavericks in the season series, and we matched up really well with them. And because we had Steven Jackson, who could crowd Dirk Nowitzki, and we also had Don Nelson, who had coached that Mavs team. And so he had a way of, getting the team ready. It was the perfect matchup for the Warriors. And, we had never been to the playoff in my Warrior tenure then. And it came down to the last game of the year up in Portland. We win that, we go in. And coming down the stretch, the crowds in Oakland that year were unbelievable. The Maverick series was as loud as any sporting event I've ever been to. And I've been to a couple Super Bowls and I've been to World Series, but nothing topped that for noise. It was constant noise and it was like a wave coming over you. And those games were so much fun to call and just an incredible, incredible story. I mean, we had since '95 through 2006 when I was there, we had not had a team that get to 500. And that year they went 42-40, just barely above 500. Beat the Mavs, but then ran into a team that had a coach that was not going to take any nonsense whatsoever. That was Jerry Sloan, and he just said, "Nope, we're not going to fall for your tricks. We're just going to do what we do," and they beat the Warriors in 5.
Yeah. So this is
Well,
a good question.
Jesse, what's happening to your Mets this year? What's going on with that?
Oh, oh, they're
You know who
bad.
you know who's a big New York Met fan is the guy who does the play-by-play for the NBA on ABC and ESPN. That's Mike Breen. He is a huge Met fan. Yeah. So there you go. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I interrupted your question. Sorry.
No, we should have Mike Bree on the podcast because he's a Mets fan. That'd be a good episode.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So, sorry, I was just taken aback by that. That's never happened. No, I didn't expect like an NBA guy to be like in the MLB. But moving
Actually,
on.
actually, let me give you a little background. I've done all kinds of sports, and for 3 years I was one of the TV voices of the Oakland A's. And then before that, I've done games at the collegiate level. I've done games in single A baseball, double A baseball, and triple A baseball. So I have a lot of baseball in my background. And again, very blessed to have done play-by-play in 2 major sports.
That's my fault. I underestimated you. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
All right. So what's like the greatest moment you've ever seen by like any game ever that you've ever seen? Ever.
Wow. Oh man, that's a real tough one. But I guess because I was calling the game was when the Warriors won the title in 2015. That was so special because you realize when you announce for bad teams just how hard it is to be a good team, and you really admire the consistently good teams. And so to be in this situation to call a title clinching moment for the Bay Area. It had been 40 years since the Warriors have won a title. And I remember thinking that this is so cool because for young Warrior fans, the last championship team was their dad's team or their grandpa's team. Right now they had their team. And so I thought that was really cool. And then to follow that up by being able to take my family on the parade, I had to get up and speak in front of 1.5 million people. That whole time period was a tremendous thrill.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Wow. All right, Gabe. What's your next question?
I would like to ask. You mentioned earlier you are an official employee with the Warriors. What's the on a personal level, what's that relationship like working with the team for so long and then seeing that this is an organization that, has with recently with their dynasty with the Warriors has been built around like the pairing of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. Obviously, Steph being the star, but a very group oriented roster.
Yeah, it's really a fun place to work. They when they bought the team, and some teams aren't like this. What they said was, we're not going to have a business side and a basketball side. The two sides are going to work together and be together, and so it's a real collaboration, and it's a lot of fun because there are no barriers, and we have great ownership, we have great management. They're very generous. I've we've had some health situations in my family the last couple of years, and I've taken some games off, and they've never ever questioned that. They said, "Okay, go do what you have to do. Go be with your family, and go do what you have to do." And so, when you work for people like that, it really makes the job a lot of fun. Now, granted, I call it a job, but to me, being able to do this for a living. I mean, I work every day. Even today, I was getting on the laptop this morning, looked up a couple of players I don't know much about in the draft because I really don't have time to watch a lot of college basketball. If I'm watching basketball on an off night during the season, I'm watching another NBA game. So, yeah, so it's just been a great place to work, and working for the fan base. Warrior fans are unbelievable. They are so loyal and so passionate, and they know the game, they know the players on the other teams, so it's really a fun group to work for.
Warriors.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, sometimes when if somebody does notice me, radio's kind of nice because I my picture's not out there. So, but if somebody does notice me, that's what they'll if they're calling from across the way, mall or a restaurant, or whatever. That's what they'll do. They'll chant Warriors. So.
I don't know if I even did it right. All right, moving on. I'm fumbling today. All right, Liam, what's your next
So,
question?
speaking of the draft, the Warriors have pick 11. Do you have anyone that you think the Warriors are looking at that they want to draft?
Not really, because when you get that far down, it's really kind of a crapshoot. You don't know who's going to be on the board. You probably have a really good idea, but sometimes there's a trade that gets thrown in the mix before then, or somebody changes direction, and being a general manager in our league is it's got to be incredibly hard. And you're playing poker with the other 10 general managers ahead of you. So I really don't have a guy that's I've picked out. If you're picking one or two, I think okay, then you can say okay, I really like this guy. But they could be any one of 10 different players that they go with that 11 pick. I do like the fact there's some history on our side. We got Klay Thompson with the 11th pick, so maybe if they can get another player of that kind of caliber, I think they'll be just fine.
All right, so this will probably be the last round of questions after
Okay.
me. I think we'll probably do three more, and then that'll be it. So, what is one like? Have you ever so like wait besides Steph Curry, who is the most sensational player to watch in the NBA that you've seen?
Whoa, boy. There's a whole bunch. I don't know if I could say just one, but I will say this: Victor Wembanyama he hasn't even scratched the surface yet, but he's a tremendous player to watch, and his size and his skill ability. He's going to be a real pain for everybody else in the league for years to come. I mean, he is, like I said, he's so young. He really hasn't gotten there yet, and when he gets there, it's going to be fun to watch. And then, on the the Warrior side, I think when you had Steph and Clay working together, that was unbelievable. I mean, because you could have a play breakdown, get the ball to either one of those guys, and if they got a good look at the basket, it was going to go in. And so, yeah, we were very blessed to have those two as Warriors at the same time and at the peak of their powers at the same time. It was incredible to watch.
All right, Gabe, what's your last question?
My last question, maybe you had brought it up earlier, but I know you had mentioned a little bit of your relationship with the players and with the organization overall. But what's your relationship like with the coach, Steve Kerr? I mean, being there for so long with this team.
Well, I have a great relationship with Steve Kerr. I call him a friend. He's very nice to me. He makes sure that I'm included on the road. I can talk to any of his coaches at any time. There's no regulations put on me for that. The great thing about Steve is that he and I actually go back into 1989. Uh, I was in Phoenix. I was working for KTAR Radio, and they were the flagship of the Arizona Cardinals, who had just moved there. All the stuff at Arizona State, football, basketball, baseball. Plus, we were the flagship of the Phoenix Suns, and the Suns drafted Steve Kerr in the second round, and he is, played right down the road at the U of A, and I covered some of those games. And so Steve and I have known each other for a long, long time. And so when he was hired as head coach, I was thrilled because I knew he was going to do a great job, and I knew he's a very nice guy. And some coaches are all basketball, and that's great. That's how they handle it. You could talk to Steve about anything, music, culture, politics, legislation. He's a well-rounded individual, and though basketball is his passion and his ability to satisfy his competition urge, it doesn't define him as a person. And he's a great, great man.
All right. So I think Liam, what is your final question?
So my final question is up in me, Jesse, and Gabe are all upcoming sports broadcasters. What is one thing that a lot of young sports broadcasters don't do that we can do to get our name out there?
Well, I don't know about getting your name out there. I think what you need to do is get your reps and get your do whatever you can. Even if just sitting in the stands in the corner, and if you want to be a play-by-play guy, do it into your phone and listen back to it. You are going to be your own worst um critic. Now it's a little challenging for me to say exactly what to do because every situation's different, and like if you're doing a strict radio broadcast, I will say the one thing that young broadcasters right now are not doing enough is details. And by that I mean if you're doing a high school game, and I mean all three of you guys are in high school, correct?
Mm.
Okay.
Yes.
Say you're doing your team's game and it's on a local cable channel, okay, and you're doing it for TV. Don't assume that I know anything about either one of your teams. You have to describe it and tell me, especially on radio. Tell me, is this person left-handed, right-handed? Uh, Long hair, short hair, how big are they? And so all these little, and the other thing is like on radio, where is the action? Where's the ball? If a guy's going, say he drives and scores, well, is he driving down the right side, left side, coming right down the middle? All these little details on radio add up. Now, if you're doing TV, you can just say, hey, he drives, because then the person watching can see where he is. And, and the good, a good thing to remember, if you're doing a radio call, you're providing the picture. You got to put the picture into my brain, and every detail that you see in front of you helps make that picture brighter and more I guess easier for me to digest. If you're doing a baseball game and the breeze is going right to left, outfield is medium deep with the exception of Jones in right field. He's hugging the line and he expects this guy to hit with power, and he's back. So the little details matter. And the other thing I would say, no matter what you're doing on whatever platform you're doing it on, I would say that you need to prepare. So, say you're doing your high school game. Obviously, you want to sit down with the coach for 5 minutes and talk to him about his philosophy, about his players, who's playing well for you, who's surprised you this year. You got to find out who's injured, who's sick, who's not going to play in that game, and don't be afraid to call the other team. Okay, call the other team's coach and say, "Can I get 5 minutes of your time? We're going to be broadcasting, and and just tell them straight up, hey, I don't care. I'm not going to ask for your game plan. because some coaches will clam up if they feel you're going to tell your coach what's going on, right? So just say, hey, I don't want your game plan, but I would like a few details about your team that maybe can help us get to help our listeners and viewers get to know your team a little bit better, and and then ask him about his career and where he's been, who are the coaches that have influenced him in his life. And so, and usually when you come, right out and say, look, I don't care about what your game plan is for the game, you know, uh, but you could, if he volunteers it, fine. If not, then just say, hey, we're looking to get to know you and your team a little bit more, so we can make the broadcast a little bit better all the way around. So preparation, I think, is one thing I can and tell you. And then again, whatever games you do, get them on tape, put them on get a link to them, and sit down and go through them. And then, eventually, if you guys, and Jesse has my email, if you guys get a link and you want to send it to me, I'll go through it and tell you what I like, what I don't like. And that's the other thing is, if you meet broadcasters at some of these camps you're going to, if you don't have a business card, say, hey, can I have your business card? Okay. Can I have your email? Okay. And say, and ask them. Most guys and ladies are very happy to review your stuff because they've all been where you guys have been. You know, in high school, the only thing I did that was even close to doing play-by-play was I did public address for a baseball league in Hartford, Connecticut. So that was the first thing I did, but I didn't really get to do any play-by-play other than watching a game on TV and turning the sound down. I didn't get to do any play-by-play until I was in college. So you guys are a step ahead of me right now.
All right. So my final question before we have a little trivia. So,
Okay.
do you think my Mets might do any better toward the end of the year?
I don't know because my Red Sox are in the same boat. They're not doing very good at all. But and I think it's really going to happen. I think the trading deadline for both those teams is going to be very interesting because they both have enough talent to be better. But so are you a seller or are you a buyer at the trade deadline? And so I think it's really going to depend on how the general managers feel about their teams. Do you think this is just a, a bad start? Or is this maybe a team that isn't what we thought it was? And when they answer that question, they'll tell you. If you see them making a trade where they're trading some of their better players for younger guys, then they're selling, and wait till next year. So
All right. So we have a little trivia. I'm gonna give you
okay.
about 5 questions.
Oh God.
Warriors trivia. So here we go.
Oh.
First one. It's gonna start off easy. So first one, who did the Warriors defeat to win their first NBA championship of the Stephen Curry era in 2015?
Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yep, perfection. All right, so the second one's a little hard.
Okay.
What was the Warriors' regular season record in 2015 to 16?
73-9.
Wow. Wow, that's wow. Okay.
I was there. I don't know if you know that. I was there.
Question number 3. Which player hit the game-winning three-pointer in Game 1 of the 2022 NBA Finals? Or here's a better one, scratch that. Who led the Warriors in scoring in Game 1 of the NBA Finals?
In 2022.
Yes.
In Game 1's the one they lost. So I'm trying to think. Boston had a huge fourth quarter. I guess I'd have to say. Oh wait a minute, 2022. 2022 was Boston. So let me think. Who led them in scoring? Was it Jordan Poole?
No, it
Who
was
was?
Steph.
It was Steph. Okay, I thought Steph would be too easy. I thought that was too easy, but I didn't memorize that box score. But I tell you
All
what,
right.
one of his best games ever was in that series. Maybe I think it's his best game ever was Game 4 in Boston. He scored 43 points, and the Warriors were down 2-1. If they lose that game, that series is basically over. And he put the team on his back and said, "Nope, we're going back to the Bay Area tied." And it was a magnificent performance for him in that one. I think it's his best game of his career.
All right, here is the final couple questions. Who
Okay.
scored The final point at Oracle Arena in the Warriors' last game there.
Scored the final point. And that would be game 6, Toronto.
I'll give you a hint. It's a Warrior. It was not a Raptor.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Was it a starter?
It was a starter.
Starter. Okay. Okay, so then it's
You're gonna be really mad when I tell you the answer.
let me think. I think they scored after Clay left. I think they scored a bucket after Clay left. So, in fact, I'm pretty sure Toronto scored after Clay left. I'll say Steph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like the Warriors trivia, man. All right, here's the final question. Who won the NBA Finals MVP in the Warriors' first championship of the dynasty?
The MVP of the 2015 finals was Andre Iguodala.
Yep, you got it.
Yep.
You got it. All
Yeah,
right.
Steph didn't get his until 22 because the other
Yep.
two were won by KD. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
All right. Thank you so much for coming
oh,
on.
it's my pleasure,
This was
guys. Best
so
of
much
luck.
fun.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you.
You guys did. It's great that you guys use those camps as a way to get this thing going. And again, if you guys want to send me a link whenever you get going and start doing some games, I'll be more than happy to look at them. I will or listen to them. And the only thing I would say, if it's during the season, just be patient because I may not get to it right away because I get sort of target vision on my next game. So but no, this has been my pleasure. I had a lot of fun doing this, and best of luck to you guys.
Thank you, sir.
I thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Bye
All
bye
right.
now.
Bye.